here's Brody Brazil.
I got the idea for doing this video from the comments section here on my YouTube channel, so I just want to say thank you to all of you who give me some ideas for future videos. And in this case, I felt like it was an obvious, easy topic to bring up and a presentation to do. I've got some experience and a lot of background in sports broadcasting, and specifically the label and the criticism of somebody being a homer. By the way, that image, I'm so sorry, it's distracting me. I made that with AI. It's kind of creepy how like two hands in the middle disappear into one or none. But anyway, I typed in sports broadcasters who are very excited talking into their headsets, and well, that's what it spit out. Anyway, the truths behind sports homers and homerism. I feel like I've got enough to talk about here, and I want to split this up into several different categories, beginning with some overall actual perspective. The most important part of this is that sports rarely carries the importance of life and death situations. So to be labeled and criticized as a sports homer, a sports broadcast homer, that is not the worst thing in the world. Just because you don't like somebody's sports opinions or takes or presentation, like that is way different from bias in actual journalism, covering world news and events and crime and politics and world conflict. I mean, those are much more serious topics and much more critical issues. So let's put sports in perspective for just a second. It's one thing if there's somebody with bias in real journalism and real news, but when we're talking sports, this just does not carry the same weight as real life, so to speak. It's also a possibility that there are sports broadcast homers who are also just really good broadcasters. You don't like maybe what they're saying, but their delivery and their presentation, it's very professional. It comes off the right way. It's just what they're feeding you. It's not necessarily how they're feeding you this information that you obviously disagree with. There's also a large variety of homerism levels. Somebody who's an A-plus homer who like just back a certain team or a situation or their favorite player all the time. And then there's some who are just subtle and they slip it in here and there and you're like, wait a second, that just didn't feel right. I don't know if you're talking completely honestly to me as a listener of this broadcast. So let's begin with that. There are much worse things in the world than a sports broadcast homer. Okay, so now that we understand that, it is so impossible to be impartial when it comes to who you are, your background. I mean, everybody grew up with an inspiring team as a kid that they watched, maybe a city that they grew up in, the players that were inspiring to them, kind of the timeline and sequence of events. Were they around for a bunch of their team's championships or rough years? And how about memories? All of that shapes who you are right here, right now. So to say that you're, impartial and I don't hold any grudges and I treat every team and situation the same, that is not the case and it can't be. And especially here in 2025, because everybody's background and your social media persona, it's all so widely public, right? Like everybody's talking about themselves and what they grew up on, and they have a podcast or they go on a podcast or they have a YouTube channel. Like, you know what my background is. It's all so widely known and understood that nobody can sit here and say, well, I'm impartial. Everybody's a little bit partial to something, and there's basically no more secrets about that here in 2025. As a presenter, you're going to be painted by the audience by what they know about you. I guess that's the best way to put it. They're going to look at you. They're going to gauge who you are on the air, on social media, everything they know, and they're going to paint a picture of you, whether it's accurate or not. But this is all part of the label or the creation of a label that somebody's a homer. Now, I think there's two main types of homers. There's the intentional homer. This is a person who almost like takes pride in trolling you with what I'm saying are non-wavering viewpoints. Like if a baseball player 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts on a day. Well, you know what though? It was a good day for player X because in those at-bats, those were productive outs, took some really good swings. Now, wait a second. The only thing worse than 3 strikeouts in a day for a baseball player at the plate would be grounding out into 3 double plays, because that's at least 6 outs versus just 3 outs and 3 strikeouts. But my point is, and I guess that could have been a very homer-like take, whatever I'm trying to say. The point is that person is almost like slapping you across the face as an insult. Like, you can't see that 0 for 3 with 3 Ks is a bad day? Absolutely it is. But that person would rather lie to their audience than break whatever, homerism allegiance they have to said player, said team, whatever, wherever it's coming from. That person would rather try and twist your arm a little bit then just tell it to you straight, which is sometimes just fine. Teams have bad games, players have bad games and stretches. It's not personal. It's just the result of the game and what's happening. Now, if you as a broadcaster make it personal, that's a totally different story and a totally different video. I should get into that sometime. We're just here talking about people talking about the games, and that's it. The person also, usually when they're an intentional homer, they're very present during good times. Oh, it's easy to talk about the team. They've won 4 out of 5. They've won 6 straight. They just won a playoff series, whatever it is. But that person is also strangely absent when things aren't going well. They definitely don't want to be in that conversation. There's also the unintentional homer, and this is somebody who isn't maybe trying to come off with this reputation, but it's somebody who would rather avoid anything hard. Well, the team's struggling. I don't want to talk about that. Let me divert your attention over here. Let's talk about this player's personal life or their latest social media tweet. You know, it's like, wait, we can't not talk about losing this basketball game by 55 points tonight. Like, that has to kind of be the number one headline. Why are we twisting the direction here? It's somebody who also dismisses the bad. And I'll be honest, if I ever get criticized for being a homer, I'm a homer of this team or that team, a lot of times it's because I'm just an optimistic person by nature. I don't think the game's over until it's actually over, and the season's not over until it's over. But also, I put a lot of trust into things I see and I know that maybe fans don't. I can see a person working hard, and usually that means that they're going to turn it around and get the results. Or a team that's doing the right things behind the scenes, and you just aren't seeing it yet. Or you trust the fact that you see something, the fans don't see it, and you're trying to just translate that trust. Anyway, the point is here that it's not always necessarily a bad thing that somebody's trying to be an unintentional homer. They're just either A, optimistic, or they know something, B, that the audience doesn't, but the audience is still like, hey, bud, you're a homer in your broadcasting here. There's also fan misinterpretation here. Now, this happens a lot if you are a national game broadcaster, especially if you're somebody who works for one team during most of the season, and then you're doing a national call between either that team and somebody else or two totally separate teams. You're like, wait, aren't you the Dodgers announcer? And you're doing the Dodgers-Yankees World Series. And yeah, that was actually the case this past baseball season. It is so difficult when you're that person because you have to try now and play both sides equally. Even if you're the Yankees broadcaster doing the Yankees-Dodgers World Series and you're doing it for a national network, Aaron Judge homers, it's like you have to play that off the same way as Mookie Betts hits a grand slam. Like you have to try and play both sides equally, but the math there, it's just impossible to do, right? Nobody's ever going to do that to everybody's satisfaction. I also think that going back to honesty as a broadcaster, and sometimes you're just trying to be that way, maybe the more optimistic side, or you're saying, hey, hang with this storyline, watch this team, or I think that player on our team was fouled or drew a penalty that wasn't called. Anyway, whenever you're backing a team or a player with honesty, I think sometimes it goes and fuels the fan disappointment. Like they want you to also side with them, and when you don't, you're a homer. Even though that's not how you feel in that situation, they're trying to drag you into the fire, which I get it. Sometimes I want to go into the fire too. I get angry about situations one way or the other. But I think, again, sometimes the broadcaster not going into the fire with the fans and sharing in that disappointment, the honesty versus disappointment difference there is part of being labeled a homer. And the last thing here is that you can't stop reputations, right? You might gain a soft reputation for being a homer. You might gain a huge reputation for being a homer. But one way or another, once that's out there with you, it's definitely something to pay attention to. I don't think, again, it's the worst thing in the world. And sometimes it's totally inaccurate, but that is how fans see homerism in sports broadcasting. Do you think that soccer ball is going to hit either one of them in the head? Why are their eyes both so blue? Why are their eyes both so big? Dude on the left has got a pretty sharp beard. They're both wearing the same suit. What is that control panel in front of them? Anyway, so many questions. Thanks a lot, AI. It's also going to be, I think, the thumbnail of this video, which, by the way, you've made it here to the end. Let me know what you think about what I said, sports homerism. And I purposely did not name any names in this video. I think there are some people who might fit the mold, but I don't want to go there. So in your comments down below, I mean, I know people are going to do it. I'm going to kind of ask you not to, because I'm not trying to make this personal. That's not what this is about. I wanted to talk about the subject, not the actual individuals who you think might be involved here. But now that that's been established, hey, go down there and hit that thumbs up button down below. Greatly helps me in this video and this channel. And one more thing, make sure you're subscribing to the channel. That way I can definitely see you back here next time.